Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. Remember to subscribe to our free podcast so you won't miss any of our illuminating content. Here is episode 182.
This model of education really allows individuals to be individuals in a way that, no institutional system of schooling can really do.
Benjamin Franklin once said, "Do not curse the darkness, rather light a candle instead." If you're ready to set your mind on fire, then prepare yourself for the Luminous Mind with your host, Rebecca Bowman.
Today's fire starter is Michelle Loucas. Michelle began her career teaching English and Greek to students ages 7 to 70 over 20 years ago. She taught high school English in Baltimore and in the San Francisco Bay Area before moving to Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, she worked for a nonprofit where she directed service learning programs in K-8 schools, taught education courses at Temple University, and helped create a teacher network to provide student voice in project-based learning. At the University of Pennsylvania, she coordinated the master's program in secondary education, where she taught graduate courses and helped prospective teachers navigate their first classroom experiences. She became increasingly disturbed by the disconnection between the amount of effort that she saw smart, dedicated teachers and students making and the amount of learning actually occurring. Although her partner Reb introduced her to democratic schools early in her career, it wasn't until she interacted with students directing their own learning that she became convinced. Further study led her to conclude that mainstream American schools are not designed to effectively prepare young people for success in today's world. She now believes that every parent should insist on a democratic education for their child. In 2002, excited about enabling urban students to direct their own education, Michelle and Reb began assembling the Philly Free School Founders Group. She loves staffing at PSF, where she joins the students in the hard but rewarding work of growing into herself every day. Welcome, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you about how this all evolved and where you're going with PFS. But before we get into any of that, can you please briefly tell your audience a little bit more about yourself?
Well, I have a background in education. I taught English in high school, as well as overseas, and at the college level, I taught education classes. So I've taught people as young as preschool age all the way up to adults. And I've had the opportunity to see that happen in quite a few settings. And I have been thinking about what actual learning looks like for my whole life. That's what led me to decide to found and work at the Philly Free School. And it has resulted in a radical departure from conventional education as most Americans know it.
Well, and we kind of talked a little bit about that in our introduction of what your journey kind of looked like. But let's dive into that a little bit more. Tell us kind of the story behind that. Maybe the question that helped spur this whole decision to move to a different direction.
I was the kind of kid that did really well in school. I had a very successful experience in a conventional setting. I found it easy to give the teachers what they wanted and to do well on the tests and to earn the A's and to get the gold stars. And I was one of those kids that sought that and succeeded at getting it. And that was great right up until I got to college. And then I got to college and realized, oh, I don't really know very much.
That's kind of shocking.
Yeah,
happened to me too.
It was very disconcerting. And I realized that all those A's didn't really represent learning. I wasn't sure what they represented, but it didn't really represent learning. And it caused me to kind of start rethinking things. Later in college, I met my now husband, but at that time boyfriend, and he was the first person who introduced me to this kind of education. He grew up in Massachusetts, and when he was about 19, his mother attended a lecture by Danny Greenberg, one of the founders of the Sudbury Valley School, and she came home and said to him, "I found the school you should have gone to." Oops.
Yeah.
So he was not one of those kids that was highly successful in school. He was one of those kids that was highly intelligent, but quote unquote, didn't apply himself. And so he had a really difficult experience in school. And it wasn't until too late that his mother realized where he should have been. So he introduced me to the idea, and I thought it was crazy. Honestly, I was very resistant to the idea. I was raised by teachers also, and I'd had this good experience in school. And even though when I got to college, I had some questions about it, it didn't immediately resonate with me that the direction to go would be a Sudbury model school. So I got into a teaching career myself in conventional schools, and I just thought, oh, it's, you just need to make your teaching student-centered, and you need to listen to students more, and you need to be more creative with your lesson planning, and you need to work harder. And I tried all those things alongside lots of other teachers that were burning the candle at both ends and really smart and really dedicated people. As I said in my bio, I just became really discouraged by the returns on the investment that we were getting. I really didn't feel like the amount of learning was happening that should have been for all that effort, and on the part of the students as well. That and the combination of my partner then getting a job at one of these schools, he helped to start Sudbury Model School outside of Washington, D.C., I had the opportunity to actually go and see it in action and actually meet some of those students. And that changed everything for me. That caused me to really stop in my tracks and question the entire structure of school as we know it. Simply by meeting the kids, just by the way they carried themselves. They were so self-possessed. They were so happy. They were so free. They were so mature beyond their years. It was really powerful. So that's when I started doing all of the research, which is now a lifelong process, and hopefully I'll never stop. But I really began reading up on it and really began to fall in love with it. And now I'm at the point where I feel like anyone with a school-age child should consider sending their kid to a school like this if they can possibly swing it.
I felt like that was kind of a bold statement. I mean, a lot of people will skirt around it and say, well, it's maybe not for everybody and stuff like that. But you're pretty bold in your feeling that, this is a great educational option for every child. And give us your reason why you've come to that conclusion.
Well, simply because no two people are alike. And and I feel like, this model of education really allows individuals to be individuals in a way that, no institutional system of schooling can really do. Now, that's not to say that every family is going to go for it. I understand that. And that's, obviously that's the family's prerogative. I want there to be many choices and many options for families. But I believe that every family who really wants this for their kid should be able to have this for their kid. And really, there are only a small number of kids, I think, that wouldn't excel in a school like this. The primary, I think, obstacle to most kids succeeding in a school like this is just whether they and their family fully understand how it works and embraces it.
Yeah. Well, and choice is, that's what makes free school so great, is that there's the freedom to choose to do this, to be there. And if you forced every child to do this or to go to these types of schools, then that kind of undermines that feeling of freedom, right? That feeling that they have the education kind of in their control.
Right. I think it should be an option. Yeah. And I think everyone should consider it as an option. And maybe after the consideration, they will decide it's not for them, and that's fine. But I would love to see us get to a place where there's a school like this geographically and financially accessible to every family who's interested. And then I would love for those families to feel empowered to explore that option and to give it some serious thought and consideration for their kids.
Yeah, because that is true. That I don't have one of these schools near me. And so, that it's not everywhere, even though I'm excited to see that they're growing and that, the movement for this idea of free democratic education is really starting to catch hold, that they're not the weird ones or the, that it's becoming a little more mainstream. But let's talk about maybe the inspiration that you have behind Philly Free Schools.
As I said, so my husband helped to start a school that operates in a manner similar to the Sudbury Valley School outside of Washington, D.C. And then he also worked at one outside of San Francisco. So when we decided to move back from San Francisco to the East Coast, where our families are, we knew that we would want to be starting our own school when we did that. And that was because he and I had both worked in city schools and fall in love with our city school students. And we also had decided that we wanted to have an urban lifestyle for ourselves and our children. So we wanted to live in a city, and we felt like there were not Sudbury schools in major urban centers and not in the geographic area where we wanted to live. So we knew we had to open one ourselves. We chose Philadelphia simply because there was no Sudbury Model School in the area from whom we'd be, taking families or competing. And because it was a place that has really solid public transportation system and pretty affordable real estate, because we were hoping to be able to buy a building for our school. We were moving from San Francisco, remember, where that was never and where the public school system, was not meeting a lot of people's needs. I mean, that was another thing about Philadelphia that was attractive for us, because we thought that there would probably be a lot of families who were looking for options. So we moved to Philly, and we started the process of trying to put together a founders group pretty much right away. That was in 2002. There were lots of stops and starts there and other things in our lives, such as my husband going to law school and me working at Penn and all these other things, and us having 2 children. But in 2011, the school actually opened, and we're in our 6th year. When we opened, we had 16 students, and we now have 72.
Wow.
And we have 19 students who are in the process of enrolling above and beyond that. So yeah, we've had a tremendous growth rate. We feel really good about what we've achieved. I mean, for us, it was about making this kind of education available to kids who lived in an urban area, and making the urban area available to the kids, because we have an open campus policy, and we thought that the many resources of the city should be part of the educational opportunity for the kids, instead of locking them into a big warehouse type building, which is really what the schools that we had worked at were kind of like, unfortunately. And we also thought that we were really excited about the possibility of the city being able to access our wonderful students during the day, instead of having them warehoused all day long and looked at as, troublesome or problematic, or an element to be removed from the streets or something.
Yeah, like, why aren't you in school? That type of thing.
Yeah. So that was part of the impetus for trying to create a city version of a Sudbury Model School.
Well, and I really love that idea, because that's really true. I mean, a lot of people, where I homeschool, people will go, well, how are you going to get your kids? How are they going to be able to handle society? But I'm like, they're in it all the time, but I remember coming out of school, and then all of a sudden it felt weird that I was out doing stuff, in the grocery store and stuff in the middle of the day. And I think that is such a growth. I mean, you're talking about kids that have their head on their shoulders. They feel confident about their environment and where they can access resources and those types of things. And then also to get people used to that, to seeing kids out and about among adults, learning from them and trying to fit into their environment. That's awesome.
I mean, it's so unnatural, like, if that's not one of the biggest symbols of how unnatural our current mainstream education system is, that kids literally don't see the light of day outside of the walls of their school, unless it's, twice a year field trip or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Well, and you kind of talked about some of the challenges that you had, starting the school, but let's really dive into that. What were those challenges, and what did you learn from those things?
Oh, I mean, hugest learning curve possible. We're incredibly fortunate and incredibly indebted to the Sudbury Valley School for their generosity in supporting schools who want to open following a similar philosophy to them. So we did have a startup kit from them, which is fantastic, but it's not a franchise, right? So it's not like you just open a package and there's the school.
It'd be nice.
Yeah, right. No, so they were great resources, but we had to start from scratch. And I had certainly worked with students in classrooms and in all different kinds of school settings, but I had never founded a school before. So I took a flying leap. I left my job at the University of Pennsylvania, which wasn't easy to get. I had 13 hours a week of childcare for my kids, during which I took my laptop and I went to a cafe and I learned how to open a school. I mean, I built a budget and I learned about insurance, and I, hired a real estate agent to help us find a location, and tried to find families and tried to work out what the financial aid system would be like, and
Yeah.
learn marketing. I mean, marketing, I used to not understand what marketing was at all, and I kind of disdained it from a distance, unknowing. And now, I understand how important it is and what a craft it is. And when I meet somebody who knows about it, I'm eager to hear what they have to say and learn from them. Yeah, I mean, it's a really long, hard road, and anybody who thinks they're going to do it quickly and easily will think otherwise before long, I'm sure.
Well, I think it's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day because I've talked to a number of people that have started these schools and struggle like that, knowing marketing and business in general. And I'm like, yeah, I guess education is the only thing that you go into that you don't get some sort of business classes. I even took business classes in the design work that I did. And I mean, because we have to be savvy business people above and beyond, just anything else. But I mean, you talked about a little bit about, was it a challenge, trying to integrate the community and society into your schools and then trying to, that meshing? How did that work? I mean, did you have challenges with that?
Well, I mean, essentially, from the minute we arrived in Philadelphia, we began networking on behalf of the school, and every person that we meet in Philadelphia, really to this day, we are constantly, my husband and I kind of can't stop ourselves from thinking about each new person that we meet and what relationship they might play to the school. You'd be surprised how often someone who doesn't even have school-age kids and isn't at all interested in education can still be somehow connected to the school through, my imagination and perspective. So, I mean, for example, our next door neighbor 10 years ago didn't have kids yet or anything. He owned his own graphic design company and, managed all these projects for all these companies. We enlisted him to design our logo and our first website, because he was our friend, and this is the thing we want to talk about all the time. So we kept talking about our school, and he became fascinated with it, and he really wanted to support the project, and he offered to do that for us. And so that was one of the many, many in-kind donations that led to the success of the school. We had a corporate law firm donate their time pro bono to helping us to get our 501c3 status with the IRS. The list goes on and on and on, with wonderful people who contributed in all sorts of ways to help us to get the school launched and to keep it going now. There's absolutely no way the school would be thriving the way it is now if it weren't for all these wonderful people volunteering.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, and we kind of talked about in your bio how your paradigm kind of changed and maybe some of the questions about that. But, if you could kind of summarize that, how do you feel like that paradigm about education has changed over time and with experience?
One of the things that our founders group was especially committed to was, as I said, making this school available to people in the city of Philadelphia in an urban setting. And with that was a commitment to racial and socioeconomic and geographic and many other forms of diversity, gender identity and sexual identity and all these things. That is one way that we believe we're taking the glorious idea and underpinnings from the Sudbury Valley School and taking it into a new direction, because that is such a firm commitment on the part of our founders group and has been essential to some of the decisions that we've made since founding the school in terms of admissions and accessibility and how we handle, we have a very aggressive sliding scale for tuition. Those things, I think, are ways that we're changing the paradigm in terms of within Sudbury model education, let's say. In fact, some of the people that we consulted early on in the project really advised us against trying to get that kind of diversity early on. They sort of said, look, the school's never going to be able to get on its feet financially if you offer a sliding scale that goes, our sliding scale goes from $1,800 a year, which is $10 a day for a 180-day school year. Wow. It goes from $1,800 a year to $13,000 it's going to be next year. So like that that's the entire range. It's a big range, right? It's a huge range from 1,000 all the way down to 1,800. And it's based on a family's ability to pay. And they submit financial documents to a third party, and that company looks at their financials. It's blind to the school. And then they let us know what the unexpected family contribution number would be based on the family's ability to pay. And then we see if we can work with the family that way. And we're super proud of the fact that to this day, we've never turned a family away for their inability to pay. We've always been able to work with them and find a way to make it happen. And in addition to that sliding scale, we also have some scholarship programs. We have a lottery program. So we actually we have, 15 to 20% of our students paying zero tuition at all on any given year.
Wow.
And that is something that we were really, really committed to. And because like I said, I came into this having these relationships with and being so impressed by students that I worked with in, Baltimore City schools. These kids, had nothing financially. There's no way they could afford tuition someplace, but they were amazing kids. And I wanted to, give kids like them the opportunity to have this form of education that I think is the best out there. Why should they not have access to it? But that was a huge leap. And we did have people say to us, yeah, that's great, but you still have to, pay the rent, and you're never going to be able to do it. And so start with middle class and upper class families, and then later you can bring along some families, who can't really afford to pay. And we said, no, we refused to go that route. And I'm glad we did. I have other, I know people, really wonderful people who are involved with other private schools who are, working really hard in their diversity committees now, schools that have been around for 20, 30, 40 years that are trying now to, now invite in populations that had not been at the table previously. Yeah. And adding it on after the fact is incredibly difficult. And I haven't seen very many models of success on that. I find it, we had this opportunity from jump to do it differently, and we didn't want to miss that opportunity. So we worked really hard to meet families where they were from the very beginning. And the result, of course, is that our staff have been terribly underpaid. We run a really, really frugal operation. Our budget is very bare bones, but it's worth it. And it has worked out. That sliding scale allows us to have families who do have the means to pay full tuition. And for them, it is absolutely worth it. And it is still a fraction of what other private schools cost in our area. So this is the only school in the area that offers this kind of education, and it is much more affordable than other schools they might be considering, so the dollars balance out, basically.
Yeah. Before we go on, let's listen to this message. Recently, the Luminous Mind became an affiliate for Ascents, which offers tremendous discounts on educational supplies. I personally use Ascents to purchase our family supplies because of their great prices, responsive shipping times, and best of all, the chance to earn EduBucks, which I use towards future purchases. Who doesn't love a great deal within a deal? To get a 90% savings on your Ascents materials, go to theluminousmind.net and click on the sponsor page to find the affiliate link. Start using Ascents to illuminate your educational experience. The Luminous Mind with Michelle Loucas, creating a powerful education in a diverse community. Oh, I love what you're saying. That really is a paradigm changer, because that is, just this morning I logged on to social media, and I have, several friends that are teachers, but one of them was talking about how we need a public school system, with all the bureaucracy and crap that we have already, because without it, we wouldn't have an educated society. And I think you are proving that it is possible to educate, anyone who needs it. and that you can make it work. Like you said, it's definitely frugal, and it's not, you're not necessarily, making people rich by this, but it's providing that education, and really, when you think about it, the middle and upper class families have always had school choice. They've always had the ability to go somewhere else, but the lower income, I've heard people say that education, at the choice in education is really a civil rights. It's the new civil rights thing, because that's what's locking people out, is that they don't have an opportunity to go to any other school. What's your feelings on that?
Absolutely. And one of my frustrations is this. There are families who would never consider sending their kids to our school because those families are so committed to the public schools, and they feel somehow that they'd be turning their backs on the public schools by sending their kids to our school. And I think that's misguided, because I think when they're using the word public school, what they mean by that is the equal rights issue that you're describing. They're talking about, giving everybody an opportunity to be well educated. That's what they don't want to abandon. And I, of course, fully support that. But I don't believe that our current public schools are doing that.
Yeah.
I think our public schools are part of the problem, and it's unfortunate. And it's not, I'm not blaming any individuals that are there. I think that it's a structural problem, but I don't think that our public schools are providing a quality education for everyone. I don't think they can. I don't think it's designed to do that, unfortunately. And it's not a matter of class size, and it's not a matter of qualified teachers, and it's not a matter of testing or more clever project-based curriculum. It's not about that. It's that the school system as it's currently designed is not designed to create the people who are going to be successful in this modern 21st century world. They're just not. I was an English teacher, so it was my responsibility to help these kids develop communication skills. Well, the entire structure that I was part of insisted that they sit down and be quiet. Like that is necessary in order to function. You have a class of 30, 35 students, and you have to get through prescribed curriculum at a certain pace. They need to sit down and shut up. And that's not a skill that they need to know in order to succeed in tomorrow's world. In today's and tomorrow's world, what they need to be able to do is advocate for themselves.
Yeah, stand up and, like you said,
things, to collaborate, to spot injustice and discuss it and debate it at great length, to be able to, this is something I've been talking about a lot lately because of what's going on in our political situation. Schools like ours not only invite, but insist that you find out what it is that you care about. You be able to communicate that to other people, and you be able to defend that to other people who have different priorities or different, differences of opinion, different perspectives on that. And because our school is so diverse, there is a diversity of opinion there, which is wonderful. That is like the richness of the school. That's why we were so determined to have it be a diverse school, and not just a school for poor kids, who don't have enough options, but both for poor kids and for kids of means. And, the whole range is really important, because that's who you're dealing with in the larger society. But being able to have those kinds of heated debates with people and really argue your side all the way through to the end, and then a minute later to continue to collaborate with them and be friendly with them and go along with them to the next activity, that we're doing that all day long. That is required in order to survive in a democratic school. And no one is giving kids practice in doing that. And the result is what you see in our adult political system right now. Is no one knows how to have that kind of a civilized, though heated, debate with somebody who has a difference of opinion, and then can still respect them and show your respect for them afterward, and show, some civility in your conduct.
Yeah. Amen. I'm totally there with you.
People who are coming from such a different situation. So, we have students at our school who come to us having most recently been at a school that cost $27,000 a year, right? Kids whose parents are, prominent professionals in their fields. And we have kids coming to us with, families with no financial means, and, who are from a part of the neighborhood or, a part of town where they would never even get to know these other kids. Like, they wouldn't even interface with them outside of our school. And at our school, they are all exactly equal. They have equal power within our school, and they are they're within a structure which they have been part of creating that just respects each other as individuals to find their own path and to understand that, their individual freedom stops right where the next person's freedom begins.
Yeah.
And that's a little messy. It's not totally obvious. It's certainly not a utopia, but that they are all invited to be part of the conversation about working that out on a case-by-case basis each day.
Yeah. Well, and even if they were going to their public schools, they wouldn't interact. I mean, there definitely is kind of a discrimination there. So I love what I can totally echo what you're saying of an amen to that, because I see that all over. I mean, that's where we have not taught kids to articulate their message and their feeling on things. And then we see the violence that we do because that's the only way that they can articulate. But like Martin Luther King talked about, that's not going to win hearts and minds in the end. That we've got to learn to articulate our frustrations and our views and all of those things in very peaceful manners. And you only do that with a great education of, how to communicate. Awesome.
And practice.
Yeah.
This is not something that, an inspiring lecture can deliver from a teacher to a student and then the student has that going forward. They need to do it, and they need to do it in authentic ways for their own purposes. Having been, like I said, I was a high school English teacher trying to set up little, speaking opportunities and speeches and debates and things like that. And they're all artificial. I mean, the kids have to, pretend to care about them. At the end of the day, they only care about them for the grade because that's what the whole system is. That's the economy there, right? And so it's not a genuine opportunity to practice that.
Yeah.
At our schools, it happens in the most subtle, interpersonal interactions that happen. I'm not even talking about in the governance of the school necessarily. I mean, certainly those are glorious opportunities too, but most kids are doing that just through their social interactions. They're learning through play all day long, and they're learning how to do that with other people who, are coming from a different place.
That's great.
And it's magical, just to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of talk about that a little bit of we talked about that your school is definitely open to the community, but let's talk about what your learning center looks like and how it operates.
The doors open at 8:30, although we even have a before care program for families where, they need to get to work even earlier, but doors open at 8:30. School officially begins at 9. Kids come in, they sign themselves in on the sign-in computer, and then they are free agents. They can do absolutely whatever they want all day long as it is not infringing on the rights of others, according to the law book that we've created as a community over the last 6 years, and that, each of them has a vote in being part of. The only things that they are required to do is to respect the authority of school meeting, which is the governing body of the school, and its various committees, and including the judicial committee. The judicial committee requires your presence at a hearing, then you have to go. That's sort of one of the only compulsory things. And then the other thing is you participate in the cleanup of the school. And our system right now is that you do about 15 minutes of cleaning at the end of the day, everybody all at once, and everybody's assigned to a certain area and everybody pitches in, and that's it. And then they sign out at the end of the day. So it looks really different for every kid. And for some kids, every day looks similar, and for other kids, every hour and every day look very different. We have kids as young as 4 and as old as 19. You can imagine the variety of activities that are going on, and it's learning through play.
That's awesome. Well, and I mean, a lot of people would go, what? And, how do you teach them how to read? And how do you teach them all of these things? I mean, do you have some classes that they attend, or, does it all happen through play like that?
We do not have any classes unless a student specifically requests to have a class and does the work to make that happen. So classes are quite rare. They have happened, but they're not the primary form of learning. So no, we don't teach them how to read. We don't teach them math. They teach themselves, and they do it in a variety of ways. I mean, every kid is very different and they learn in different ways. We like to say that they all learn how to read, and they all learn how to work with numbers, and they all learn how to write. It's both magic and really hard work. Because when we say it's magic, what we mean is that nobody really knows exactly when and how it's happening, but it's happening. But that doesn't mean that it's really easy or something. Like the kids, are finding their way to master their world through their own means. I mean, it's difficult. I mean, it's a lot of responsibility to place on a young person to say, here's the day, make something of it. And if you don't, it's only you that you have to blame.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a lot. And, I can't tell you how many kids will come, across our path who are considering our school in some way, and will ask about their experience in their conventional school. And they'll say, well, I have a really boring history teacher. My math book is really hard to understand. And in those systems, it's probably legitimate to say that it's the book's fault or the teacher's fault. But in our school, it's nobody's fault but your own if you're not satisfied with what you end up with.
Well, and let's kind of talk about those successes. I mean, you say that it works and that there's learning going on and that kids are coming out. What kind of successes have you seen? And I love how you preface that every experience, the experience is different for every child. Do you have kids crying in the hallway because they don't know how to do their phonics or something? You know what I mean? I've had that happen even with my kids homeschooling, is that they're crying because they can't, because it's hard. I'm forcing them to do something and they're just crying over it. Do you see any of that?
No, because nobody's forcing them to do anything. I think it looks different. I think
it's hard work, but it's not, because it's them propelling it. It doesn't seem like work.
Right.
Is that
right? And it doesn't look like academic work. It's not as though the kids are playing for a while until they get bored of it or they realize they need to get serious and then they sit down and crack the books. That's not what it looks like. They're learning through things that they're interested in doing. So, a kid is learning math through handling money, going off campus to make purchases, through playing pool. They're learning geometry, through cooking, they're learning math, they're learning chemistry, they're learning all kinds of things. That's how they're learning them. It's not that they choose a portion of the day where they pick an academic subject out of the sky and say, now it's time for me to focus on some science. That doesn't happen.
That's awesome. As far as your learning centers look, though, it's not just a big empty room where they're just playing, right? You have resources there. It sounds like you have a pool table and different things like that. What kind of resources can you find?
We have a wonderful big space. We're renting a building, and, the rooms are set up sort of by activity. Kids are not separated by age or by grade. Everyone's able to freely move throughout the building as they like. We've tried to sort of carve out spaces to enable people who have one particular way that they like to learn over another, to give them all a space. So, for example, our basement is our rambunctious play zone. And we have this big, huge, glorious, indestructible basement where kids are free to make as much noise as they want and to run around and to ride their scooters. We have a huge mat room and a gaga pit. And do you know what gaga is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fun ball. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a dodgeball game, and a big computer lab that sounds like an arcade most of the time, and and then a pool table and a foosball table and a beautiful music room with all kinds of instruments and recording equipment and things like that. And then our second floor is where rambunctious play is not allowed, and that is, so we have some quieter spaces up there. One room which is a completely silent room, and some people really crave silence all the time. Some people just need a little bit of silence in between some of that rambunctious activity. So we have a room where no speaking at all is allowed, and you'd be surprised how many people choose to go there. And other rooms that, serve other purposes. We have, an arts and crafts room and things like that. So that's what the facility looks like. And some kids are creatures of habit and they kind of stick to one space most of the time. And others are freely moving through them all. And then, like I said, they're allowed to go off campus. And so for some of them, that just looks like a trip to the corner store to buy candy once a day. And for others, it looks like, taking a class at a community college or doing an internship somewhere. Really the sky's the limit. And our school's only been around for 6 years. So all of our teenagers are people who came to us sort of late in their educational career. We don't have anybody who's been homegrown at our school all the way through their education yet. So we're really excited to see where students decide to go next and the ways they decide to take advantage of the city and the opportunities that the school is giving them when they, have had enough time in this model of education to feel grounded in who they are and what it is they want to do and what's possible. I think that it takes some time to do that. And I think most of our students are still letting go of some of the things that they learned in conventional settings and still spending a lot of time getting to know themselves, which is really essential and important and wonderful. But one of your questions was about long-term goals. And that's just something I'm really excited about, is just seeing the places that these kids go with what the opportunities that the school have provided for them, allows them to soar.
Yeah, great. And I wanted to move into long-term goals, but the demographics, though, like you said, is a very mixed age. There's no, you don't have young kids in one area. And I mean, is that true?
They're all mixed together.
That's awesome. Yeah.
By activity, really. So, you'll have, a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old are both equally enthusiastic about Minecraft, and they can be sitting together all day playing Minecraft.
That's cool. Yeah, I just interviewed Peter Gray, and he talked about how important that mixed age learning is, and in safety for one thing, and then from them learning from each other. The younger learns from, and then the younger or the older student can also, everything can be a review, and he can be teaching, and he can be doing those types of things. So that's awesome.
Absolutely. And the students that are aging out or deciding to pursue a diploma from us are, reflecting back on their role at the school. All of them say how important it has been for them to think about their relationship to the younger students at the school and how that helps them to develop their sense of themselves and where they stand in the world.
Yeah, they see themselves that they have, they have a responsibility there. So kind of thing.
Yeah.
So awesome. Yeah. Well, now let's move into your long-term goals. I mean, what do you hope to see? I mean, you kind of mentioned one of the things that you're hoping, but let's talk about that.
Well, the school is still growing, and we're hoping to eventually have approximately 150 students, something in that range. So, we're at 72 now. We're on our way. Growth has to be gradual because we don't want to swamp the culture, with folks who don't know yet how to manage all that freedom and responsibility at one time. So school meeting places an enrollment cap on how many people we can admit at any given time. And then we'll raise that cap little by little as we evaluate how the culture is the culture healthy in the school, and are we able to absorb new students at this time? It's a gradual process. Like I said, we have 19 people who are in process right now, but they can't all be admitted. They're in a waiting pool, waiting for school meeting to, allow that many more people in.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you're at kind of capacity of, and now you're trying to think of a way to expand type of thing. So.
Yeah. And it's not about the physical plan. Like I said, it's more about the culture, because our building can take quite a few people. I mean, of course, we also need to grow our staff as we grow our student population. And that's challenging because finding the right person to work in an environment like this is, not easy.
Yeah. And what is your staff ratio? I mean, how many teachers do you have on staff?
So we call our employees staff and not teachers because we don't teach in the conventional sense very often, and because really the students are teaching themselves. But so we have 5 people on staff right now and 72 students. So we are looking to, hire somebody, going forward, at least a part-time person, if not a full-time person. But again, this is that push-pull with the finances, right? So if all of our students were paying full tuition or even half tuition, we'd have plenty of money for more staff. Our average tuition, like I said, with that sliding scale and where our current families fall, our average tuition right now is about $3,400.
Wow.
So it doesn't amount to a huge budget,
Yeah. But you're making it. That's awesome.
Yeah. We have, our staff is amazing. And, we're hoping to, increase the diversity in our staff as well. We've done an amazing job with diversity with our students. And so now we're hoping to increase diversity with our staff as well. And we have had, since we opened, about a 50% students of color, 50% white student population. And we've had something like 7 different native languages spoken in the homes of our students, and folks coming from all corners of the city itself, and then outside the city, the suburbs to the west, and across the bridge in New Jersey. We have students, we have a pretty even distribution of male and female students, and we have several students that are not gender binary. So we have a really diverse community, and we're really happy about that.
That's awesome. Well, we've spent almost an hour talking, but before we say goodbye, do you have any maybe final parting words for our listeners? And then give us your contact information, how if they want to find out more about your school, they're able to do so.
I think my parting words are, if you're thinking about making a leap out of a conventional educational setting and into another, start by like sitting down and trying to forget everything that you associate with school and just ask yourself, what outcomes do I really want for my kid? Like, what do I really want my kid to be able to do or know? Or how do I want my kid to be in the world as a result of their education? And then move forward from there and ask yourself, what kind of a learning environment is going to enable that? Because when I've asked that question to people in all sorts of settings, usually they don't end up in a mainstream school. In their mind, that's not the setting that is created in order to get to that outcome that individual typically wants. So that might enable the listener to give themselves a little more breathing room in terms of what kind of an educational setting they will consider for their kid. If that's really the outcome that they're after, then they might have to consider something really non-traditional in order to get that, but it would be worth it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So my contact information, you can reach us at learn@phillyfreeschool.org. The school is located in Philadelphia in the Graduate Hospital neighborhood. And we have open houses almost every month. So if you're interested, please just go to our website, phillyfreeschool.org, and RSVP that you're going to join us at one of our open houses. And we would love to meet you.
Yeah, I'd love to meet you in person because this has been super fun to talk about. And I love the idea that she talks about asking yourself the question, because I think so many of us, we don't ask questions about or what our education should look like or what we want for our children. We just do what everyone else is doing. So asking the questions.
Yeah. And unfortunately, too many parents only start asking those questions when their kids are in crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's really too bad. And so I really hope that some folks will, be pioneers like our current families are and ask themselves those questions earlier in order to prevent the crisis from happening for their kid.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. Again, her website is phillyfreeschool.org, and you can email them at learn@phillyfreeschool.org. However, we're going to be sure to link all the information that we've discussed today on our website. But thank you so much, Michelle, for joining us and helping us light our minds on fire on this really important topic of education. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to The Luminous Mind. To learn more about Michelle Loucas, go to our show notes at theluminousmind.net. Be sure to become a subscriber to our free email list. Then check out the Services tab to see how we can continue to assist you, our fire starters. Also, to help us continue production of illuminating content, go to the Sponsor tab at theluminousmind.net for more information on sponsorship and affiliate programs. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Google+, Pinterest, and now Instagram. Get our free audio content by subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, and Stitcher. To help us grow, consider these easy ways. Tell your friends about us, leave us a review, share our content. Tell us how we can help you so together we can continue to light minds on fire and change the paradigm of education.